Welcome to Voices of Resilience, part of the Iron Sharpening Iron universe, where stories of strength, healing, and hope come to life. I'm your host, Davina Lyons, also known as Mama Lyons, and this space is dedicated to amplifying the voices of those who've turned pain into purpose. Each episode, we dive into real conversations about courage, self discovery, and rising stronger than ever. So lean in, take a deep breath, and be inspired by the incredible voices of resilience, because every story has the power to heal. Welcome to Voices of Resilience. I'm your host, Davina Lyons, also known as Mama Lyons. Today, I'm joined by someone whose work is helping women redefine what true personal growth looks like. Melanie Shires is the founder of Positively Melanie and the creator of the Inner Authority Framework, a transformational approach that helps high achieving women reconnect with their inner authority so their decisions, boundaries, energy, and lives reflect who they truly are. Through her coaching community and programs like Circle of Eight, Melanie guides women beyond surface level success and into deeper alignment, self trust, and intentional living. Her work is especially powerful for women who appear accomplished on the outside, but know something deeper is calling them forward. She also holds a special place in my own journey. Melanie was the very first guest I launched the Coach's Corner with, and I'm proud to be a part of her Circle of Eight community. That connection makes today's conversation especially meaningful for me. Melanie brings a grounded, soulful, and deeply insightful perspective to personal development, one that moves beyond motivation into real transformation. I am so excited to have her here as we talk about growth, resilience, and what it truly means to rise from within. This is so excited. Welcoming Melanie. Hey there, Melanie. How are
Hey,
you?
Davina, how are you? I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic and very excited to have you on because, like I just said, like I shared, you were my first
Yes.
first podcast guest ever. And so this is a really good feeling, honestly, because I couldn't think of anyone better to explore this topic today.
Hmm.
What you've been around, you've seen my growth,
Hmm.
you experienced seeing me go from all about being authentic to being a part of the tribe. You've been there, you've watched my growth journey, which I'll share a little bit about, but honestly, I learned so much from you along the way as well, and especially being Positively Melanie. You walk that talk, and so yeah. This episode, I just want to say it means a lot to me because I really feel like there's a lot of people out there who either they believe in personal development or they don't.
Hmm.
It's like there's no it's like they don't get it, and I want us to shed some light on that, and I want you to share more about what that's like to be Positively Melanie, but also to be someone who inspires and leads people in
Yeah.
this direction of growth,
Yes.
personally and professionally,
Hmm.
actually.
Yeah.
um so I want to start out by sharing something really quick, because in preparation for this, I was thinking about my journey and how it all started for me. This this growth and development train that I've decided to live my life on as a passenger. And my journey has been definitely one of a lot of growth, anyone who knows me. But it started with years ago in my early 20s. I was working in a corporate environment, always have, just like right out of high school. I was always working in that type of an environment. And I didn't realize, um, I guess, you don't know what you don't know when you're young. And
Mhm.
so I did not realize that it's not okay to call off from work because you want to go with your best friend to take her child to the urgent care. And so I was just like, I called off and said, we worked in the same office. And I said, well, I'm going to go with her because she needs me to go with her. And when I came in, I want to shorten this, but basically I was written up for whatever, and we know what for. And I went to my desk and I was like, I couldn't believe it. Like I absolutely could not believe I'm in trouble because I helped a friend. And a coworker who sat in the same cubicle area with me, and she said, I'm going to need you to take responsibility for this one. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, this is not your job is your job. She has a job. She has a child. Her child was sick. She did what she was supposed to do. How does that relate to you? And, I can't remember verbatim all of the conversation, but it was in that moment, I was being coached.
Mhm. Oh,
And that
absolutely.
message, say that again.
I was saying absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah. And I didn't, at the time, I listened, which was great. And I let my guard down. I wasn't so defensive. But I remember thinking, and to this day, I look back on that moment a lot. And I think about how this was another person who cared enough to set me straight.
Mhm.
And in that process, I started seeking those types of people after that. I started being open to
Right.
growth.
Right.
When somebody tells me something, I listen. I'm very coachable, but
Mhm.
if it doesn't apply, I won't. But for the most part, I love being open to feedback and to But that was the first time that I realized that, hey, there's another way to look at things.
Mhm.
There's another way, and I didn't have the agency yet. I didn't have the knowledge or the experience to realize that that wasn't a good move that I made. And so I had to accept the consequence and move on.
Mhm.
And then of course after that I started seeking growth, and then I think but that was the beginning of my being open to being coached.
Well,
And
you said it best. You were open.
right.
That's the key. It's that anyone who is going to experience transformational growth, which is what you should experience if you are seeking personal growth, which is the foundation before even professional growth. You
Right.
have to understand your inner authority before you can grow in your professional world, but we'll get into that. But the
Yeah.
key was you have to be willing, ready, and able, and all
Mhm.
three. And many people are two, but not all three. Do you see what I'm
Right.
saying? So it's not
Yeah.
the first thing is you need to be willing. And when you said
Mhm.
open to, because when we talk about coaching, anyone can be coached. I mean, we start off with our parents coaching us, right? Because our parents
True.
should be instilling, values and things as we grow up. And then we get into the classroom, and your teachers should kind of pile on that, right? And expand upon that teaching or that
Right.
coaching. And then even your friends and coworkers, like what happened with you, your coworker, can be coaches for you.
Right.
They just don't call themselves coaches. And some people take offense when someone is trying to help them, right? Because they're
Right.
not willing or ready, right? If you're not willing or ready, then you're not able either. But if you're not willing and ready to be open to suggestions, right?
Right.
Then there's a defense that goes up, and it's like, okay, why are you telling me what to do when the person really isn't? They're trying to help you, but there are some people who are trying to tell you what to do. But again, we'll talk about that when we talk about inner authority. Um, because if you have
Mhm.
a strong one, then people can tell you
Mhm.
what to do, and that's great. You let it roll off you like water on a duck,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you know
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
But if you do also have strong inner authority, you will take what you need, because a lot
Mhm.
of people that are coming to you with something, suggestions, whatever, even sometimes opinions, it's because usually they care about you. So it's usually
Mhm.
coming from a place of good. Um, Maybe they aren't doing it in the best way, but it really is coming from a place of good. But again, if you
Right.
have inner authority and strong inner authority, then you're not going to get defensive. You're not going to put walls up. You're not going to do those things, because you have awareness and you understand where
Right.
they're coming from, and you also understand yourself and you trust yourself very, very much, right? So
Right.
anyway, um the whole, again, being willing, you said you were willing
Mhm.
and open, and then you
Mhm.
sought out personal
Mhm.
development afterwards, because you're like, I want to be around other people who can help me to elevate me so that I can
Yeah.
grow into the woman that I want to be. Or, a lot of times, people who want to make it to a certain level in business, they always want to be mentored by people that they
Right.
admire, because they're like, those are the individuals that can help get me from where I am to where they are.
Right.
Not the people where I'm at, right? I want to get
Yeah.
mentored by people who are doing more, or have achieved more than me, so I can learn from them. And so that's the same when people are seeking out individuals to help them in their personal development journey, but they need to be ready for that. And a lot of times, like you said, you didn't even realize, because you were young, whether we're
Right.
young or old, it really gets into awareness first, right? I mean,
Right.
that's anything. You can't learn, you can't grow, you can't evolve, you can't transform if there's not knowledge. And usually the knowledge comes from being aware. If you aren't aware of your behavior, if you're not aware of your limiting mindsets, if you're not aware of those things, you're going to continue doing what you are doing because you're unaware. And you hit it on the head when we opened. You don't know what you don't know. Right? So it needs to
Right.
be, okay, now it needs to be brought to your attention. You
Right.
need to be aware. You need to acknowledge that you don't know what you don't know. Oh, let me seek out this person trying to show me something. And then
Right.
it goes from knowing to
Is
embodying, right? So,
exactly. Yeah.
so there's a step, because there's also a lot of people, and I guess we'll
Right.
get into this too, with personal development, that they're just personal development junkies. They just love
Right.
personal development. They want to learn, 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 and that's great. There's nothing wrong
Right.
with having the knowledge. But if you never step out of your comfort zone and actually implement or integrate what you're learning into your day-to-day life, that's where the work comes in. If you
Right.
don't do that, then there will not be transformation. You will just be someone with a whole bunch of knowledge in your mind, and you might want to tell that to other people so that you can say, hey, I know this. But if you're
Right.
not living it, if you're not embodying it, if you're not integrating it into
Exactly.
your day-to-day, then it
Yes.
doesn't really matter. And most people are going to look at you like the emperor with no clothes. Okay, that's great that you have all this knowledge, but why aren't you applying it to your life? But you're trying to tell me
Right.
I should apply it to mine, right? I mean, right? You're like, okay, that's
Right.
all great. But at the
Right.
end of the day, you don't have to say a word. Because if you're walking the walk, if you're living the life like that, if you are strong in your inner authority, guess what? People are going to see that and want to follow you. They're going to be inspired by you. They're going to be like, wow, this person is doing the things that they say they want to do. I want to find
Mhm.
out how they're doing it, even on bad days, even when there's failures, even like I want to learn from this person. The same way we look at people that we admire or want to have as mentors. There's a reason why we felt that drawing to that person. It's because that person is embodying what they're saying. They're living it. They're walking the walk, right? So
Yes.
anyway, I know that was a long
No, no, that's good stuff. That's good. There's
yeah.
someone listening that is really trying to figure that out. I think this is a timely topic right now because, we are in a kind of a stressful environment,
Mhm.
even as a nation with so many things happening.
Yes.
And I do believe that people are seeking answers.
Yes.
And it's not that there's something wrong with you
Right.
because you are seeking growth.
Right.
It's because I think it's to for mankind. I do believe that survival is our greatest instinct, right? That's the
Mhm.
greatest thing. It's about surviving and
Yeah.
surviving in this current climate means that you have to reinforce yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I do more self help practices now than I ever have.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about that in your Circle of Eight community. We
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about these
yeah.
things, and how do you gird yourself up? How do you strengthen yourself, and really um, get from day to day feeling good and protecting your peace.
Mm-hmm.
That's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that there are people now, and it doesn't matter what age you are, there
Mm-hmm.
are people that are now starting to say, I need to, like, even for someone older, I would say an older generation. I don't know how to classify or categorize, but like my generation or your generation, we're at a stage where we're realizing that the things that we worried about when we were younger
Mm-hmm.
is not as big of a deal as we
Mm-hmm.
thought. But
Mm-hmm.
we also are, I feel like we have maybe less time ahead of us than is behind us, kind of, is,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that's not morbid. But the point
No,
is,
it's factual. It is,
reality.
yeah, it's the
Yeah,
reality, and that's why I like to call this time. Most people call it midlife. I like to call it you're becoming, because really, when you get this age, you need to lean into it, because we do have less time. Whether you're a man or a woman, we do have
hmm,
less time. When you look and you're over 40, you're going to have less time than
right,
what you had
right,
behind you, and so
right,
now you need to be very present and intentional about how you want to live out the rest of your days. And yes, there's nothing, yes, we have less time ahead of us. So if we are in jobs that are stressing us to the nines, and we're always constantly angry when we go home, and
right,
reflecting that on our spouses, and now our home life is tense. You know what I'm saying? We're constantly stressed about money, or, every time we turn on the television, it's something negative, and then that feeds into our nervous system. We're looking at the fact that, okay, I don't want to live like this. Why?
right,
Because I only have so many days on this earth. You
right.
should think about that when you're young. I'm going to say, like, every day that you wake up
Yeah,
is a blessing. However, when you are younger, it's less pressing, because you feel like I've got my whole life ahead of me. So I can try different things and do different things and make
right,
mistakes. It's all good because I've got time, right?
right,
Um,
right,
so and quite honestly, when you're younger, I mean, there is a certain path. I mean, everybody's on a different pace, but there is a path that's very similar, right? I mean, you're going
mhm,
to think differently at 20 than when you were 10.
right,
When you're 30, you're going to think about things differently than when you were 20. When
right,
you're 40, you're going to think about things differently when you're 30, because typically there is a somewhat similar path to, you know, our lives as we get older evolving, right? When you're 10, you don't have a family, you're a child. So your world
right,
is going to be different. And
right,
there's going to be lessons you're going to learn within that world, right? And then when you become, a preteen or a teenager, you're starting to learn more about your own autonomy and inner authority, and how do you navigate that world with still respecting your parents, and even though you disagree with them, because the world is different for you, right? And
right,
then go into when you're in your 20s and you're really trying to figure it out. You're now trying to navigate the world of adulthood, when you still have developing to do with your, right? You're still developing. I mean, we're
that's
not
right,
fully developed until we're 25, but we are
right,
put and thrust into a world where now you have responsibilities, bills, whatever, all the things that adults have to worry about. How do you navigate that? Trying to find yourself. What do you like? Are you trying to find, maybe for some
right,
people, finding their significant other and all that? Then usually you go into building a family. Some people are like, I don't want a family. We talk about this in the Circle of Eight. I'm
mhm,
choosing, because I have strong inner authority, I'm choosing that I do not want a family. And I have reasons why I
right,
don't want one. And I'm
right.
fine with that. And though externally, I'm not looking for external validation on that. We'll talk about that. But
Yes,
that's the
yes,
thing. It's like, and then you get into our space where most people, when they hit midlife, that's when the reflections start. That's why the professional development industry is $1 billion industry. And most of the people that are contributing to that are people in our age, because we
right,
have gotten to the point where success is no longer fits where we are. Like what we
right,
thought success was, and the things that we wanted and everything younger,
mhm,
may no longer fit. where we
Right.
are today. And so now we're starting to really recalibrate and look inward and kind of figure out, okay, I've checked all the boxes, but ... Right. And so that's where the introspection and reflection come in. And everybody's looking at tons of YouTube videos and buying all the books and listening to all the podcasts and whatever, because we're like, externally, we have all the boxes checked. We've
Right.
got the money, we've got the house, we've got the marriage, we've got this, the that, the that, the that, the that, whatever it is that you've envisioned of success. However, for a lot of people, in particular women, because that's who I work with mostly, um,
Mm-hmm.
there's this inner friction that's going on, right? It's that inner friction that like everything looks great on the outside, but internally, mm, there's something going
Right.
on. And it's usually our, we are really seeking to revalidate internally who we are, what we want, what we're about, because for so many years we've been performing. I
Right.
mean, at the end of the day, we've been performing, we've been overextending, we've been overexhausted, we've been trying to get validation externally from everything, from society, from our family, from our employers, from
Absolutely.
our spouses. Like, so you get to a point where you're just tired of performing, right? You're
That's
tired of
it.
proving,
That's
you're
it. That's
tired
it.
of the external
Mm-hmm.
validation. And it is interesting because as people get older, people make jokes like, okay, old people can just tell you off because they don't care. Yeah, they really don't care because they're at a point where, you know what, this is how I feel, take it or
Right.
leave it,
Right.
and
Right.
it's because we've lived life and, we have earned that right to basically say, you know what, I'm reconnecting to me. What is it that I need?
Right.
What is it that I yearn? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
So
When you get to this age, and again, like I said, it's usually both men and women, because don't sleep, men feel the same way. They just handle it differently than we do.
yeah.
But they get to the same point where all the boxes are checked. That's why you have so many CEOs and SVPs and EVPs that are having strokes and, stress to the nines because they've been in,
Mm-hmm.
men are very good at compartmentalizing, but it's almost a curse
Absolutely.
for them because they are taught to just keep it tight,
Stop it.
let anybody know how you're really feeling. And it comes to a point where at some point when you keep putting those bombs in a little closet, it's going to explode. And usually it explodes in so many ways where it's usually health related for men a lot of times. Right. And you
Yeah.
wonder why
Right.
someone who's young or whatever is having a heart attack or stroke or whatever. And people are shocked because they're like, well, I thought he was this and that and the other. I mean, he is
Right.
successful and he
Right.
is happy with a lot of things, but he's also been misled to believe that he can't show his emotions. So if he's upset, angry, whatever, he shouldn't talk about it at home or talk about it because he doesn't want to stress her out. Right. And that's just not healthy. Um,
Mhm.
as women, we don't have a
Mhm.
problem expressing. It's just that, so we will
We're
let it all
wired that way.
us. We're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, tell me one more time about how horrible work is. Like, honey, just leave if you're not happy. But it's we don't have a problem expressing it. What we have a
Yeah.
problem doing is actually listening to our inner authority and basically having the hard, tough conversations, because a lot of women do not like conflict and they look at things as conflict when it really isn't conflict. You know,
Right.
they just don't like having the hard conversations a lot of times, right?
Right.
Uh, I think we talked about this in one of the sessions where, you have somebody at work and they're a superstar and a woman is a superstar at work and she's doing a lot of things and her boss keeps giving her more and more projects to do, right? And
Right.
it's because she's a superstar and they know that she can handle it. However, and you feel a lot of things, right? You feel pride because you know that you are looked at a certain way. Again, external validation. You're looked at a certain way at the company or amongst, your superiors, the CEO, the president, da da da, and you're looked at as the go-to person.
Right.
However, you're not getting compensated for the time and energy that you're expanding, because it's not just about money, it's about time and energy. So you're basically going to work and working from 6 in the morning until 10 at night, sometimes until midnight. And I don't care how much money you're making, you could be making $5 million. The bottom line is the time you're spending is from 6 in the morning until 10 at night, when your peers who are at your level doing the same thing, but you're doing some of their work. They're making sure that they get off on time, they're able to enjoy their weekends or whatever,
Mhm.
and they're
Mhm.
riding
Mhm.
high. And you're wondering why you're stressed and why
Mhm.
you're disgruntled. Like, there's something, there's the tenseness there. Yeah, because there needs to be a conversation. There needs to be a recalibration of the boundaries that are slowly dissolving around you, right? Because you are the high achiever. So usually high achievers, they don't give their boundaries away. They're very capable and high achieve. They understand. What happens
Mhm.
usually is because they are high achieving and they a lot of times are perfectionists and want to prove that they are worthy of whatever, boundaries start to dissolve around them, right?
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
like, oh, that's a
Absolutely.
superstar. They get the accolades. Everybody talks about them. They know, they're the superstar, and don't realize that more and more work is being piled on them. More and more expectations are being piled on them without the compensation, and not just monetary compensation. It is, I need to take care of myself. I need to have
Right.
vacations. I need to be able to get off work at time. Like, the boundaries start dissolving. And so, we talked about, if you're in that situation and your boss comes to you and says, hey, I've got this other project, you would be great because you're this and that and the other, then you just nicely say, that's fantastic. This seems great. So what are you going to take off my plate so I can take this on? How
Right.
are we going to reprioritize? Again, recalibrate the
Right.
situation, right? How are
Mhm.
we going to make
Yeah.
that happen? Or, you know what, there's all these things that I'm doing because you know that I have all of these different talents and this value. Maybe we need to come up with a new position that encompasses everything that I'm doing, because with a new position also comes a new salary,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
it's like having those conversations. Um, we tend to, especially
Yeah.
as women, we tend to look at it as, whereas men have absolutely no problem whatsoever having those kind of conversations.
Mhm.
You ask a
Mhm.
man to take on more
Yeah.
responsibility, oh, he'll take it on, but he'll also be like, what am I getting in exchange with him? What's in it for me? I'll take that on. So am I getting a raise? Because the expectation for them is like, okay, if I'm taking on more work, I best be getting a raise. I've been waiting for a raise. I best be getting one, right?
Yeah.
There's no second guessing. But for us, it's always a second guess. And it's because a lot of times we're in environments where we feel as though we have to prove our worth being there. So if
Yeah.
you're in an environment where it's all men and you're the only woman, you feel innately you have to prove. And I don't even want to get into minorities, but the proving part of it is, do I really belong here? And I've got to prove above everybody else that I belong
Mhm.
here, right? And
Mhm.
that gets into a whole nother thing, but that slowly chips at your inner authority, because now what you're doing is you're giving that authority away to external factors, right?
Mhm.
Validating other people, validating you instead of
Mhm.
validating yourself.
Mhm.
And
And
again,
it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing because,
absolutely.
as you're talking, I'm thinking about myself. I've been where everything you've talked about and described, I've been there,
Yeah.
especially starting in corporate so young and having to feeling like I had to prove myself. I went through the stages where I was told, "Oh, you need to change your personality because you're too." And I think I talked about this on one of my
Oh
other
yeah.
episodes. I'm
You're
I'm
too
just too
abrasive. You're
aggressive.
too
I'm
aggressive.
abrasive.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
You're
And
not
and
approachable.
right. All of those things that you're
Mhm.
taught. And as you were saying, what happens is not only does it chip away at your inner authority, you question yourself.
Mhm.
And this is why self-awareness is so important, is
Mhm.
because when you become self-aware,
Mhm.
and also it reinforces your ability to be resilient, is when you really understand,
Mhm.
what are my patterns, what are my
Mhm.
triggers, what are the
Mhm.
things that get me to react a certain way.
Mhm.
Why do I follow what someone else says when it really doesn't make sense, nor does it align with how I really
Mhm.
feel?
Mhm.
And you said it earlier, it's about proving, who are you proving your worth to?
Mhm.
Why are you doing that? When
Mhm.
you're younger, you do it. And I do think, even as a teacher, I believe that our education system is part of the part to blame with that, because we teach kids they have to be a certain way, they have to
Mhm,
sit, they have to listen, they have to do this, they have to do that, because we want to control and keep
mhm,
down chaos.
mhm.
But I know there's
Well,
in my
society in
classroom
general, I mean, every single
in
country,
general.
society in general, they have to do
Yeah,
that. There are
yeah,
certain things that we have to do as a collective in order to maintain law and order, right?
right,
So I get that,
right,
right? But,
right.
and you're absolutely right, in the classroom that's taught, usually, and you could speak to this better than me because you're an educator, but usually so that the classrooms stay organized
Yes,
and not
yes,
chaotic, because you let,
yes,
5 and 6 year olds make that decision, then it's chaos. But as
right,
you get older and become in high school or college, then there should be less um
direct
sameness, or like
control,
do
yeah,
that, like
more
you're more
self-led,
of,
more student-led. Yeah,
you express yourself, right? And
right,
we're hoping that, like, yes, that's the whole point of college, is so that now that you're in an environment where you're learning, but you're also able to express what you've learned in your way.
right,
But I know that that's still institutionalized too, so that's a whole nother thing. But then the same when you get out into work, you think, oh, okay, now I can just be. But yeah, I remember working in finance when I first graduated, even though I was in marketing. Again, back then it was, and I was in a big city, Chicago, so it was blue, gray, or black suit, right? I mean, you don't, there is no really there was a uniform, even though they didn't say there was a uniform. Oh, there was a uniform. And if you were someone who happened to be ethnic, and I couldn't have this back
right,
then in 1989, when, you know what I'm saying, when I'm working in corporate, no, it needed to be straight and either cut in a nice cut, or it needed to look a certain way. And if it didn't,
right,
then there was
right,
consequences, right? And
right,
so again, we all learned, and we got locked, stop, we stepped in line and we did what we needed to do. But
yeah,
that's all secretly chipping away at your inner authority. And usually that happens when you're younger and you allow it to, because you're trying to fit in so that you can have the American dream like everybody else. I mean, I was also very happy that I was making a good amount of money, more than my
right,
friends or my peers, because I was working at a wealth management firm at a young age. And so, yeah, I'll straighten my hair. I'll wear the suit. Like, I'll do
yeah.
what you need, because guess
I'll do
what?
whatever you
My
say.
bank
Right,
account is that's my ROI, right? So,
right,
so we will do things like that. But then as you start getting older and you start really leaning into your like your inner authority, you realize that that's where resilience, just like you said, is built, is in
hmm,
the, yeah, I know what the consequences are. And you know what? I'm still going to do what's best for me, even if that means I don't have that job. And guess
right,
what? When that happens, when things like that happen, you have those difficult choices to make, and you
hmm,
lean into your inner authority and make them.
hmm,
What may seem like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. It's, I got fired or I got let go or whatever, typically will build your resilience, because you'll realize that it was a blessing in disguise later.
hmm,
So what'll happen is that, okay, so you got let go from this company, but then you got a job at a place where you could be you, and you're so
right,
much happier. And then you make more
right,
money because you're thriving in that position, because you actually
right,
can speak your mind and really be
right.
seen and heard, right? And so,
Yeah,
it just all compounds. And then you realize that, what, my world didn't crash and burn.
no,
Like
that's
it
right.
was just a bump, but it didn't crash and burn. And that's where resilience, at that pain point right there, that realization of, you know what, it stung, it hurt, but I'm
Yeah,
fine,
yeah.
right?
You have
That's
to go
when
through some
resilience
things.
starts happening, right? And that's even
That
when you're a
is
little kid, you realize the whole world is coming to an end. You fell off your bike, your knee is scraped, you're bleeding,
right.
run home to mom. Mom kisses it, puts the band-aid on, and guess what? The pain goes away, because it's painful at first, but pain goes away because she rubbed it and put the band-aid on there. And then after a few days, guess what? You take the band-aid off, and then there's a little scar, but guess what? After a week, the scar's gone. And then you realize, okay, if I fall off my bike again, it ain't that big of a deal, right? But you had to
Right.
do it the first time to realize that, okay, that's in those little moments, even back when we were children, all those little moments help to build resilience. So if you never have disappointment, you know, rejection,
Right.
whatever it is, because I don't really look at those things as failures, because I look at them
No.
as life lessons, right? So it's education. But When you have those disappointments or those obstacles that happen, or unexpected, you know, unexpected disappointments, I guess that's the best way to say
Yeah.
it. When you get through it, that's when your resilience starts getting stronger.
Yeah,
And the stronger your
absolutely.
resilience gets, the more you start trusting yourself, because that's what inner authority is. Inner authority
Right.
is trusting yourself, right?
Right.
And when you have strong inner authority and you trust yourself, guess what? You make better decisions, you make better choices, you have more energy, and you expound that energy in better ways, and you live your life that's best for you, and in turn end up living a positive,
Mhm.
joyful life, right? Because
Absolutely.
you're
Yeah.
living for you. No matter what's
Yeah.
going on, you're living for you. And it doesn't matter if other people don't understand, don't like, don't approve. It doesn't matter, because you're living for you. And so when you see people that are walking around, it seems like they're super positive. How can they keep how they have so much energy and they're positive and they're da, 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 da. It's probably because they're making decisions and choices that are best benefiting them and not someone
Mhm.
else, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the twist is getting boundaries and all that. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, if you're
Yeah.
really living your life for you, that's not to say that, everyone who is living a great life is wealthy or what. Everybody has different like terms of what
Mhm.
success is. But I'm saying, if you are living true to yourself and you set your life up the way that you like it, meaning you have the people in your world, in your circle, that are supportive and loving and, all the things, right? If you are giving of your time and energy, like, for work, even if you're not doing a job that you are passionate about, because everybody can't
Yeah.
make money from their passion. I could be passionate about collecting bees. That doesn't mean I'm gonna make money collecting bees, but I really get joy out of collecting bees, right? So what I'm saying is, your
Yeah.
calling is, okay, I'm doing something that is meaningful. It gives me purpose, and I'm making
Mhm.
a living so that I can do the things that I love doing, as far as, my passions, right? Now, if you happen to be lucky to do your passion earns you an income, I mean, bravo to you. Like, yay,
Right.
right? But that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that if that's not your truth right
Right.
now, that something's wrong with you, or that, oh, you gotta make your passion, you know what I'm saying, your
Right.
income.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that's just ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, everybody has different values and whatever. So again, what I am saying about living a joyful, positive life, that's determinant on you, right? And everyone is different. Davina, you know what's best for you more than I do. And your life
Mhm.
may look completely different than mine, but we both might be, happy as clams, you know what I'm saying? And like run
Yeah.
around like, skipping
Mhm.
down the yellow brick road to Oz. It's just different. But that doesn't mean anything. So I think it's more about when we start trusting ourselves, because we do
Mhm.
have all of the answers within us. And that's where we
Mhm.
talk about personal development and guides and coaches and whatever. No one can tell you what to do, people. No one.
Right.
No one can tell you
Right.
what to do. What they can do is provide guidance and suggestions and insights or whatever. But at the
Mhm.
end of the day, you have the power within you to make your life whatever you want, right?
Mhm.
And some
Mhm.
people aren't aware yet of it, right? It's the willing, ready, and able. Some people aren't
Mhm.
aware. They're in situations where they feel stuck. If you're in an
Mhm.
abusive relationship, you feel stuck. You're like, okay, that sounds great, Melanie. That's great, but that doesn't apply to me, because I'm just trying to survive day by day, right?
Yeah.
But it's the
Right.
understanding that even in that survival, you you have choices. I'm not saying those choices aren't hard, or those choices will not put you out of your comfort zone, which is where the growth comes in, right? It's like, the only reason why somebody is in an abusive relationship is because they are comfortable with the knowing. I'd rather know the devil that I know
Right.
than the unknown, right? So it's not
Right.
because they want to be abused. I mean, nobody wants to be mistreated or abused. The reason why
Right.
they are staying there is from fear of the unknown. Right, and that's
Right.
any. I mean, I don't care what it is. It could be a bad job, it could be, I mean, I can't lose weight, I can't whatever I can't do, or I'm
Right.
stuck. It's not because you really are stuck, it's because you are afraid of the unknown. You are afraid that if you step out there, you may fail. And if,
Right.
again, it's all about mindset, it's not about failing, it's about
Right.
getting data and information so that you can keep moving forward. All right.
Well,
So you,
you need to put a pin in that real quick because that's
okay.
important. Don't move past that. That
Okay.
I had made a note to come back to that because you mentioned
Okay.
that earlier about fear of failure.
Yeah.
And but that last part that you just said is so essential. It is data, it's information,
Hmm.
it's to be used.
Yes.
Many times people have experiences, negative experiences,
Mhm.
and they're down on themselves and they're
Mhm.
like, oh, I failed at that, or I'm no good, or whatever the case
Or
may
I am
be.
a failure. Like that's
Or,
even
yeah,
worse. Like, this
saying
has
that
nothing
I'm a
to do with
failure.
you. Right. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. No, but the truth is, you just learned. You just had an experience that you learned from.
Hmm.
You just now made a deposit into your database of growth, and
Yes.
that to me is so important.
Yes.
There's something else that you said, trust. You know, being able to trust. We gain trust in ourselves by having experiences
Mhm.
and surviving them and
Yes.
going through. You
Yes.
got to grow through.
Yes.
I think sometimes people think that avoiding issues or
Mhm.
avoiding failure is
Yeah.
the better route. It's not. It
No.
really isn't.
No.
But it takes, you know, when you talk about building your inner authority,
Hmm.
honestly, there's no better way to build it than to have experiences
Well, you have
and
to.
to know.
Well,
You
that's
have
where,
to.
like I was saying, resiliency
Yeah,
comes from that because it's
yeah,
you reiterated what I said beautifully when you
yeah.
talked about it's data. So when you look at there is always ROI or return on your investment to put
Hmm.
yourself out there when you're afraid and when you don't know and when you have a high probability of things not working out. In your mind, you're saying, I failed or that was a failure, but it really wasn't a failure because you learned something. And by learning something,
Yeah,
that is the ROI because you
that is
won't
it.
ever get to success, whatever that is. If that means I want to be
Mhm.
130 pounds, if that means I want to have $1 million, if that means that I want to have the love of my life, if that means
Right,
whatever that means for you, you will never get there if you
right,
don't learn what not to do. If you don't learn the pitfalls,
right,
like how are you going to know? So it's about
right.
education. So those failures are not failures, they're data.
Mm-mm.
Look at it like
Mhm.
analytics. They're analytics for your life, right?
Right,
It's like,
right,
okay,
right.
I'm reading the data and I'm
Right,
realizing, okay, I don't need to do that again because that didn't
right,
work. Or,
right,
wow,
right,
that
right.
let me double down on that. But if you don't
Yeah,
have those experiences, guess what? You're going to be running around in a circle doing the same thing, right? Just throwing
yeah,
stuff at the wall, see what sticks. Um,
yeah.
we all have that, but it's more about, again, this is where the mind shift comes in, or where your mindset. People say this all the time. Mindset is everything. But this is what we're talking about. It's how you see things. It's you could see the glass half empty, half full, or completely full because you're like, well, it's full with air and liquid, right? So it depends on how
Right,
you
right, right.
look at it. But the thing is that if you look at your disappointments or your, mishaps, mistakes, whatever, as data points, right? That's
Mhm.
golden. It's data points.
Yeah,
It's to help you
yeah,
so that you don't make those same mistakes again. It's to help
yeah.
you so that you gain some knowledge about not to just listen to what somebody tells you to do, right? I mean, there have been so many people who have been fooled and swindled by experts, right? And they're
Right,
like, well, I gave all this money because I thought that this person knew about business and blah, blah. I'm sure people have tons of horror stories of them trusting experts. Okay, well, there's lessons to be learned in there. There are a lot of people
right,
who are experts and deserve all the money that you're going to give them, and they're going to 10x your business or whatever you want. But
right.
you have to do some vetting. You have to do some, again, inner work to know that, okay, is this not feeling right? Okay, listen to your inner authority because it's saying something, right? Are
Absolutely,
you asking the right
absolutely.
question? Are you doing the things that you need to do in order to properly vet somebody to give your time, energy, and money? And maybe you didn't the first time, but guess what? You will the second time because you have that data point. Do you see
Right.
what,
You
you know
now
what I mean?
know.
It's
You know
like
what
it's
you didn't
have
know.
to have that
Absolutely.
so that you won't
Yeah.
do it again, right? So
Right.
nobody walks this earth unscathed. Nobody walks this earth without having problems, disappointments, you know,
Yeah.
obstacles. And some people have more than others. So I'm not trying to take it, if you're someone who is being thoroughly abused mentally, emotionally, and physically, I'm not saying that's the same as somebody who just lost their job. But what I am saying is that in both situations, there is growth that can happen. And that's where the
Right.
resilience
And
comes in.
I'm glad you brought that up because I also want to point out that there's also a difference when there are people who legitimately have mental health issues.
Oh, yeah.
There are
Yes,
people who need, treatment or medication or,
absolutely.
not everything. And that's another thing that, if a person is in that situation, self-help, personal development,
Yeah.
professional, whatever, those
Yeah.
things sound like far-fetched because
Mhm.
there's a chemical imbalance. There's
Right.
something going on with this person that they need
Yeah.
medical help.
Yes. Yes.
And so you have to know where you are in terms
Yes.
of what you really need or seek
Yes.
information to
Yes.
determine that, because what we're talking about here is really about, like you said, a high achieving, as an example. And I even my rise framework, reflect and identify, stand and emerge, is not to everyone. It's for
Right.
the people
Right.
who are very able
Yes.
to make good decisions, but are so overwhelmed by lack of clarity
Yep.
internally, like you said, lack of exercising that internal authority because they're too busy dancing to the beat of somebody else's drum,
Right.
whether it be their corporate sponsor or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, you get a gut feeling. I don't know about you, Melanie, but I always had a gut feeling when it was time for me to do better, to grow.
Oh,
Like I
absolutely.
knew,
I,
I don't
I
want to say
honestly believe, I honestly believe everybody has that. Everybody. I
yes,
mean,
yes,
everyone has that. It's a matter of just being aware you have it and being ready,
right.
willing, and able. Like really, what comes down to it.
Hmm.
And I'm glad you
Hmm.
brought that up, Davina, because yes, who I work with are people who are already high functioning. So yes,
Right,
there is a difference when you hear people talk about personal development and coaching and all this. There is a stark difference. If you are someone who is dealing with depression or anxiety
right,
or things that are debilitating in that way, you're going to need therapy. And there's a difference
right.
between therapy and personal development, right? I
Big
mean,
time.
so therapy is the first step, right? So it's
Yeah,
like you need to bring people who unfortunately are dysfunctional to
right.
functioning first before you can
First.
talk about personal development, because personal development really is what you said, Davina. It's high functioning people who feel stuck for whatever reason, and it's about us helping them uncover and discover what it
Right,
is, and
right,
then helping them or empowering them, I like to say, with practices and rituals and tools and things to
right,
help get them from point A to point B. So it's like, okay, I'm stuck. So first bringing that awareness and then giving them the proper resources, tools and practices and things so that they can embody what they're
right.
learning, so they can integrate it in their life so that they really can make change, because you're not going to be
Absolutely.
able to make change just because you know.
Right.
That's the first step. That's what everybody
Mhm.
gets stuck on. Just because
Yeah,
you read a book, you went to a seminar, you have a coach, you know what I'm saying, you do all
yeah,
the things, you know, that's just the first step. Now it's
right.
about embodying. It's about
Walk
living,
it out. That's right.
walking the walk and in
Yeah,
integrating, and that takes accountability, personal accountability. It
right,
takes discipline. It takes doing things continually and consistently, right? I mean, habits don't get changed because you listened to someone motivational on a stage and you were jumping out of your seat afterwards. You're like, yes, they were talking right to me.
yeah,
That's not going to change. Okay, yeah, yes, they were talking right to me. Now, when you leave the building, now what?
right.
How are
What are you
you
gonna do?
going to implement what they said and integrate it into your day to day so that you can actually live that life that they're talking about? And that's
Right,
where true coaching comes in, because usually when people are coached or go to like small groups and stuff, you hold that person accountable. It's the accountability piece afterwards. It's what are
right,
you doing on a day to day or week to week basis that are small little things that are going to help you to embody what you're trying to improve, right?
Right.
Or, getting from point A to point B. And I think that's where a lot of the gap is for a lot of people and the disconnect. It's like, we're not
Absolutely.
saying that it's great to have the knowledge, because that's really the first stop. And then the embodying is the second stop. Because if you don't have the knowledge, you're going to walk around and say, I don't need help. I got this. I'm all right. I'll deal with it. Whatever the phrase you need to say
Yeah.
in your mind to keep you
Yeah.
comfortable in your complaining. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever's going to keep you comfortable.
Yeah.
As long
I
as you
want
make
to,
people comfortable in
yeah.
complaining with you, you guys all complain to each other, and that's fine. But if you're at the point where it is really a pain point for you, you're at the precipice of burnout or whatever it is, then it is going to need to be, okay, I need to find out, what do I need to do? Because what I'm doing ain't working. So what do
Yeah.
I need? And then that's where you go on, like you were saying, Davina, where you go on your, I'm seeking out.
Right.
I'm a seeker. I'm seeking out, like, what can I do? What can I learn so that I can better myself? And once you're at that point, then and only then can you start down the road to that transformation, right? Because
Yeah.
if you don't have that, then nothing else is going to work. So you first have to have that. I'm seeking to find out, how can I better myself? Then once you have that, you go and you learn about things, whatever they are, and you absorb that information. And then it's about, okay, how do I embody what I've learned? How do I integrate that in my day to day? Because Melanie's day to day is different than Davina's day to day,
Hmm.
right? But
Yeah.
how do I incorporate that for me? And my
Mhm.
values may be different than Davina's values. So I'm going to have to incorporate my knowledge in a way that's going to be best for me. And I think that's also where there's problems in, coaching in general, is because there's not one size fits all. Here's the blueprint. Y'all, I made it. I'm
Nope.
successful. This is the
Mm-mm.
way I did it.
Mm-mm.
Pay me to get my blueprint. And it's like, okay, but that's your blueprint. Your life, your decisions,
Yeah.
your experience, your how you were raised, all these things are different for everybody. And so yes,
Well,
let me just make this one point. There might be a common thread denominator of, like, yes, there's a common thread amongst all of us, but we're all very different.
right.
So the way we're going to get from point A to point B is going to look different because we're individual, right?
Hmm.
There's not a
Yeah.
one size fits all, you know?
Yeah. 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 There's so much to this. There's so many layers to this onion, as they say, because there's so many nuggets that you're dropping, Melanie. So many that I want people to catch some things. And one of them is values. You mentioned values,
Yes.
like like understanding what you value. If you, as a certified coach, as I am, as you are, understanding that that's one of the first things we help our clients identify
Yes.
is what their values are, because
Mhm.
that is kind of the foundation for the way that they will show up in their life. Oh, looks like we lost the Wi-Fi connection, went out for a little bit there. Okay, I'm
Okay.
back.
We're back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi did a little weird thing. So here's the thing, understand there's so many, this could be like a five-part series. It
Oh,
really could, because
absolutely.
there's so
Absolutely.
much to talk about. I wanted to talk about your environment. I want to talk about space. I want to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about
I mean,
community.
it's so interesting. So, okay. So my framework, I have an inner authority framework, and I came up with
Okay,
this framework. I'm doing this work because for myself, right? So I was
right.
doing this because of my evolution and my, growth into inner authority. And inner authority, there's different parts to it, right? So you've got, what I have is the four domains, or like the four areas, right? So it's decisions, boundaries, energy, and coherence, right? So life coherence. So again, if you are strong in your inner authority, you're going to, have high decision quality. You're going to have, boundary integrity, which means not just setting boundaries, but actually implementing them and embodying them. You're going to have a good stewardship over your energy. Where's your energy going
Mhm.
and being replenished, right? I mean, whether that's people, projects, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, where's your energy being replenished after it's being depleted? And then life coherence, is your life, are you living your life how your values are? right? Are you living to your values, right? And so that, but there's other layers. Then you've got the pillars, which is intentionality, mindset, and self-expression. So I
Okay.
call it, intentional living, positive mindset, and joyful self-expression because I'm positively Melanie. So you
That's
may
right.
not want to be confetti like me. You might want to be more like fireworks, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is you're expressing yourself, right? So I just say joyful self-expression. But, and then it gets into what you were talking about, Davina, which is the life dimensions, right? So that's your mind, your body, your soul, your space, right? Your environment, how you set that up, your calling, again, your purpose in the world and how you're offering your gifts to the world. And that's what you're doing for a living or how you're offering your
Right.
gifts. And then flow, that comes from like financial wellness. I call it the flow because it's about abundance, right? Money, whether it's money or energy, and energy is part of money. Like you cannot make money if you're hoarding money, right? Energy, you can't hoard energy and expect energy to flow
Whoa.
to you, right? It
Yes.
flows. So that all talks about that. But again, you have these layers, like you said, and that all funnels into inner authority, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can't have inner authority if you have a mindset that is a scarcity mindset. You just
Right.
can't, right?
Right.
If you're not living intentionally or if you're not intentional about the things you do and say and the decisions you make, then you're not going to have high inner authority, right? If you don't express
Right.
yourself, right? Express yourself. That means, hey, this is how I feel and this is what I'm going to be me and not put on the mask or you know, or the
Hmm.
costume or change every time I'm in different environments. I'm changing like I'm a
Hmm.
chameleon. You're not going to have high inner authority, right?
Period.
And again,
Period.
the dimensions are just more, this is how we live our life. So it is really important to be cognizant
Right.
of, our emotional well-being, our mental well-being, our spiritual well-being, our environmental well-being, right? Those things, I just don't call them that because that's more of a mental health thing. I just say the mind, the body, the soul, the
Right.
space, the calling, the flow. But that's essentially what it is. It's all of the dimensions of our lives, and everyone is different. I'm going to need to focus on certain areas of my life that's different than yours.
Right.
I may be very aligned with my circle, right?
Right.
Socially, with my
Right.
family and friends, but maybe I'm a little disconnected or misaligned spiritually,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or maybe I'm a little misaligned, with my space. But everybody's different. But as long as, again, that awareness is there, here are all the areas of my life, and what do I need to focus on? And in order for me to focus on any of those things, I need to reconnect and strengthen my inner authority, meaning my trust in myself.
Hmm.
Right. So that's the thing.
Right.
Once you do that, then other
Right.
things become easier. Guess what? Once you do that, then your decisions become real clear.
Hmm.
Your yeses become stronger and so do your nos. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and your no's are with grace and love, right? But they're
Absolutely.
very clear, right?
Right.
Your boundaries don't start to evaporate because again, what I'm talking about are people who are high achieving people. So they feel like, oh, I set boundaries and I make sure I stand by them. But there's certain boundaries that have evaporated, which is why there's this inner hum of stress and distress in you. Right. Because you're like, I
Right.
still feel like I'm making all this money. I'm successful. I'm getting awards. I'm speaking on stages, but something's wrong.
Right.
Yeah, because you have no more boundaries because they evaporated around you without you really
Yeah.
realizing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Like,
anytime you are
yeah.
living in misalignment
Right.
with your values, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel it.
Well, I'll give a good example too from because I deal with and am in a community of a lot of educators and follow educators and vice versa. I definitely know that for a lot of educators, it lights them up to teach and to be in the lives of their students. They
Mhm.
show up because they
I
can't
see that.
wait to help
Yeah,
enrich in the
yeah.
lives of their students. But at the same time, dealing with the current climate, especially post COVID. I know people get tired of hearing it, but it's still very relevant when it comes to education, because we had kids who were out as much as 3 years out of
Right,
school.
right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so now they're back in. So, and I'm teaching that group now, and there were a lot of kids in situations where they didn't have structure. They were at home, parents working. They were trying to log on and do the home thing. We see the correlation now. We see those kids who are now fighting with the notion of having to sit still in a seat, and so forth and so on. So taking that, I believe I'm a high functioning individual. I believe that
Absolutely.
I definitely know that I understand self promotion, self development. I understand all of this. I had to sit down myself and come up with my own framework just to be able to say, how can I help teachers? And that's how
Mhm.
Rise was born. How
Right,
can I help teachers who love what they do, but they're going home in tears?
right,
And I had
right.
to think about myself. I was
Yeah.
raising my voice at students. I was getting very frustrated often. And I had to say, okay, how can I? And that's where my whole framework started to develop in terms
Yeah.
of reflect, identify, stand, and emerge. I had to stop and think within seconds, how do I respond to this child who has interrupted my class 15 times deliberately because he wants to suck the life out of the room?
Right.
He needs something. And
Yeah.
since all behavior is communication, I need to figure out what that is. And
Yeah.
I need to come at it in a different way, and in a way that allows him to still remain, him or her, to still remain dignified, to feel good about who they are. And so that's how, so to me, that's an example of growth and development at any level and stage in our lives. It's necessary because we always want to be able to go to that next level and to be able to help someone else get there.
Oh,
Most of
absolutely.
people like yourself might, yeah, it's great. Positively Melanie, you're positive, but you're not just positive for yourself. You're
Oh, no.
positive for the people in
Well,
your
and
environment.
I also have to tell my kids this all the time. It's like, Positively Melanie gets pissed. Positively
Okay.
Melanie gets disappointed. Positively Melanie has really bad days. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not some anomaly where I'm just,
Yeah,
this
you're human.
fairy, like throwing out pixie dust everywhere. No, it's just how I respond, not
Right.
react to things that happen. And I'm more
Exactly.
aware and I'm more intentional about things. But by no
Right.
means am I walking this earth unscathed. I mean, I've had some really bad things happen to me in my life. So
Yes.
it's not about that. But something that you said, it's like I tend to find that people who are really good coaches, they're basically coaching from personal experience. So, like you said,
Absolutely.
your RISE framework came from you solving a problem for yourself. So, the
Right.
same with me or anyone that I know who is in the whose purpose is to empower and help people, whoever that group of people are, right? It's
Right.
usually because they walked that walk, right? People who are helping those that are dealing with addiction usually were addicted and then came out on the other side. And so they're able to actually bring up that awareness, right? And actually show people how they got from there to where they are, right? I mean, people are going to
Absolutely.
believe them because they are walking examples of here's the awareness, and this is how I embodied and
Yes.
actually integrated into my day to day the steps, the practices, the rituals that were necessary for me to get from this point to that point. That is what's inspiring. That is what really helps
Right.
others to understand that they can do it too. So
Right.
those typically are the coaches that have the most impact, are the
Right.
ones that can say, I
I
know
did
you
that.
can do it because I'm a living example.
I've done it. Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yep.
cannot believe that it's been an hour.
I know. I know.
You and I could probably talk many, many more hours, but I think we'd lose viewers, and I don't want to do that.
Well, you can just have
So
me back.
I
You know,
definitely
have you
will. I
back and then
definitely
just
will.
let's talk about one of the subjects, right?
I
Kind of thing.
know, I know, because I mean, all of these words, oh, mindset, fixed,
Yeah.
growth,
Oh, yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
God, values. There's so much that we can talk about in this space. At the end of the day, there's two things I want people to understand. I want people to understand that they too that that they too can achieve what it is that they set out to achieve, as long as they really take the time, reflect, and build their inner authority. And
Yes.
Melanie, you're the person to help with that. And so definitely I want people to follow up. I want people to explore what we're talking about a little bit deeper. Go to your site, tell them your
Yeah, I know
website.
what. Okay, so if they want, so here's the thing. If anyone, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, which is great, this
Yes,
is where I live basically. So I
yes,
actually have a newsletter on LinkedIn called Beyond the Title, and it's reflections on work, worth, and what really matters. Because again, I think that a lot of leaders, a lot of professionals, and even if you don't have a title, that's why it's called Beyond the Title. Doesn't matter what your title is. You can be a coordinator and you're actually leading your peers in your project, right? So for me, it's more about let's reflect on work, worth, and what really matters. So it's beyond the title. So if you're on LinkedIn, outreach to me,
right.
subscribe to that newsletter. If you want to learn more about my programs and just about me in general, by
Mhm.
all means, I do have a community that I will have that's, for women. So it's going to be great. We talk about all these things. And Davina said she's in right now, one of my cohorts. So
Yes.
I have, another cohort that's going to be coming up in June. So if you want to know about that, you can go to my website at www.positivelymelanie. So it's all one word, Positively Melanie. It's on the screen right there,
Yep.
positivelymelanie.com. And then you can go and learn all about all the things that I'm doing. But like I said,
Yes.
if you're on LinkedIn, that's a really good way to connect with me. Just find me on LinkedIn. Melanie Shires, Positively Melanie. Subscribe to my newsletter, which is Beyond the Title.
Mhm.
And yeah, just
Yeah,
outreach me on LinkedIn. I'll connect with you guys.
yeah, and they should. I think that no, I don't think I know your circle of eight community and all the things that are coming. Definitely, please, especially if again you're high achieving. You know you got your stuff together. You just know that at the end of the day, sometimes you don't have enough day ahead of you because you
Mhm.
have overextended and you've just put yourself out there. And I've been there, so I get that.
So have I.
You have to know when enough is enough, and you have to say I want to stay high achieving and I
Mhm.
want to stay out of a hospital bed, because
Absolutely.
stress and all of the things that can happen, Melanie, I know we're ending, but honestly my wake up call is when I fell at
Yeah.
school, and then after that I had the issue with my Achilles tendon, and
Yeah.
then I
So
was
the
in a
boot.
boot.
Yes. Yes.
That
Yes.
book changed everything for
Mhm.
me and made me double down on, listen, I have to take care of me. And
Myself,
even
right? And something
yes,
that's also key too, before we wrap up for
yeah,
everyone who's listening, it's also about community. And so
yeah,
for me, that's a big thing for me is
mhm,
to make sure that high achieving, well, women, but high
yeah,
achieving people, but really women for me,
mhm,
we have those sacred circles that we can come
yeah,
together and we can share and commune and basically say, hey, you're not alone.
right,
These things that you're feeling, other people are feeling too.
right,
And honestly, the whole peer coaching thing is real because you hold each other accountable, you share and you hold each other accountable, and you actually help each other to make those transformations together because you're locking arms going on a similar journey. And
right,
there's something beautiful about that. And so I love facilitating those things. And
mhm,
so, again, I do think that community is huge.
mhm,
We in this society have been conditioned to be very me centric and me oriented and singular. But if you look back in history and in communities where, in tribal communities where it is about community,
mhm,
how much they thrive, right?
mhm,
Really,
mhm. Yeah,
because that's really important. And I do believe when women come together in circles, because that's how it is in certain tribal communities, they thrive.
mhm. No,
So
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Again, we could really go on and on with this. This is such good stuff. This is I eat and breathe development and
yeah,
growth, and I
yeah.
I preach it to my to anybody who listen actually, because because I look at what my life, how I feel like my life is wonderful. I'm happy
Mhm.
where I am in my life now.
Yes.
Is everything perfect? Absolutely not. But I'm happy with me, and I'm happy with where I ended up when I look back over my life and know how much I've grown. And
Oh,
I just
absolutely.
want to see so many people have that experience. And
Yes.
it's just it's a beautiful
And
thing.
we didn't get here alone,
Right.
right? So the
No.
people who are continually seeking to for self-development and self-improvement and, self, evolution,
Right.
those of us who are seekers like that, every time that we hit a milestone of, oh my goodness, I've overcome this, or oh my goodness, I've learned something new, or,
Right.
we weren't alone when that
Right.
happened,
Yeah.
right? We can look at
No.
the woman on one side of us or the other side of us, or if
Right.
it's your family circle, your spouse, your children, like you can look on each side of you and see the people who have locked arms with you to help you on this journey. And so that's something to understand too, is that you don't do everything alone. Like you
You
can't
don't.
evolve alone.
And the
So
great lie is it's better to be, but it's not better to be alone. And I
yep.
do think that some people just fear of stepping out, fear of failure, fear of whatever. Fear is one of those great things that I think keeps people stuck.
Mhm.
And I know. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna
I
end
know,
this.
we'll start talking again, and then it'll be another hour, and people like, yeah, I'm signing off. Y'all are
Right.
great, but I got stuff to do on this Sunday.
Right, right, right. We have things to do. So, anyway, thank you for whoever's listening, who will listen now or in the future. Remember, it's just really about making ourselves better, and this is just another set of voices from of resilience. I mean, we are just trying to put that stuff out there so that people get it. And if you have this yearning within you, you don't know what it is, but something's nagging, something's saying, I need to do something different. Maybe I need a different career. Maybe I just want to do what lights me up, what I always wanted to do, blank blank, whatever. You can just open yourself up to growth,
Yep.
reflect, do the work, right? And until the next time, until next Sunday, will be the Coach's Corner. Thank you for being here with us and for taking this time. And that's it.
Bye, guys.